So cool. We'll get started. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Racing Spot. I'm your host Nayan Narwani, and today we have a really exciting panel with us, starting with Mr. Ankush Ahuja and uh, Anthony Mendes and Siddharth Shah. So just to give you all a short introduction, Ankush Ahuja is the biggest Kimi Räikkönen fan I've known, and he's kind of been the person who's made me fall in love with the sport a lot more, and like I think the more I say, the less it is. I think he recently has purchased a very good F1 memorabilia, which I will let him say what the memorabilia is, and yeah, of course, if you could just introduce yourself and just tell us about the recent F1 memorabilia you got your hands on.
Yeah. Thanks, Naren. Thanks for having me here. Hi to Anthony and Siddharth. Great
Hello.
to be part of this show that Naren's hosting today. And yeah, I mean, I've been a very big Raikkonen fan for. In fact, I used to be a Hakkinen fan before Raikkonen came in, and then once he joined McLaren in 2002, there was an instant connect. And you know the thing. There's a thing with the Finns at McLaren, so yeah, the choice was pretty easy. And then yeah, I've been following Raikkonen and his exploits since 2002 through the years. The only 2 years that I was kind of disconnected with what he was up to was when he was in rallying and then doing his thing in NASCAR. So yeah, once that was done, he left Ferrari to go on to Alfa Romeo. So I really wanted to have a couple of good memories of him during his time at Ferrari. So I got myself a amalgam SF71H 1:1 steering wheel, which came in last weekend. So um, thanks to my friend who flew it in, who's actually himself a post chief in Abu Dhabi
All
for the
right.
race. In fact, if you guys remember, Ricardo, he had that engine failure where he left a lot of oil on the track.
Yeah.
So that was at the last turn. That's where he's the post chief. So he was the guy who got it. He got it down. The other thing I got was the amalgam 118 scale model of Raikkonen's 2018 Ferrari, which is still stuck in Dubai. So I need to find a way of getting that down.
Okay.
But yeah. So those are like two really important pieces of F1 memorabilia. In fact, I've done the unboxing of that on my YouTube channel as well.
Yeah,
And
please do watch
yeah,
out for
I've
that, everyone. We'll put in
and
the description
yeah,
in the link, and
and in fact, on that same day, I also got the Thrustmaster SF1000 Ferrari wheel add-on. So that's more for my sim racing rig. In fact, I've not been able to sample it after my unboxing. Been tied up with work and other commitments. Trying to get to Abu Dhabi for the race with no
yeah.
vaccine has been a big challenge.
So that's quite exciting to know. I think as soon as I came to know about he getting to his hands on those two wheels, literally, I just the first comment was, "Ankush, I'm coming to your house right now. You better be careful with those wheels." But yeah, hats off to the passion and the commitment Ankush has for the sport and for Kimi Räikkönen in particular. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kimi Räikkönen is last year, but I think we'll get there as well in a bit. And we'd
yeah,
like to introduce Anthony. Anthony is working with Kasakai Mumbai. He's working as a content creator and a freelance consultant as well. And I think Kasakai has played a very important role in this as well, because I think we've met earlier only because of Kasakai race training. I think Ankush I've met during a Kasakai
yeah,
race training.
yeah.
Siddharth I've met during a different race training. But yeah, I think the one organized by
In
Supercars
fact,
as well. Yeah.
they did such a fine job. I remember even the morning races, the
Yeah.
Australian Grand Prix, and
Yeah.
they used to host at Smash. So it was in a way we were searching for somebody to host screenings in
Yes.
India, and specifically Mumbai, because there's such a huge crowd. And I remember Kasakai also expanded to Bangalore, if I remember correctly. They had a couple of screenings there as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, kudos to them for having connected all of us
Yes. Yes. Yes.
like-minded guys. Otherwise you feel very lonely in a cricket crazy country like India.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. all the hats off to them for all the credit goes to them for organizing race feeding. I think only it's
Yeah.
because of them that we are uh, in this meeting right now. I think. So Anthony, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and
Yeah. So well, Naren, thank you for having me on the show. Nice. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I mean, for from a racing perspective, I used to watch mostly highlights from the last, let's say, 5 7 years because either it should be football or going out somewhere on the weekends. So catching up with races was difficult. But due to the, can I say the pandemic word, or is it like, is it fine? I think it's fine. Right? So yeah, so basically, since then I've been watching all races on time, even practice sometimes, which is quite good actually. But previously I wouldn't think about it. It used to be qualifying highlights and the main race highlights. But now I can just sit down and watch all these races, so that's kind of nice. And I don't support a team per se. Like haven't built that sort of a relation with any team. But yeah, I prefer watching Sergio Perez drive. So that's one of the things about me when it comes to watching Formula One.
great, great, great. That's super exciting to Anthony, and it's definitely a pleasure to have you here and. Looking forward for the super exciting chat that we will have today. And moving on, we have Siddharth Shah, who is a very passionate Ferrari fan, and he's been supporting Max Verstappen this season. And and even yeah, even I've met Siddharth during a race screening only in Thane.
Yeah,
Uh, so I think hats off to the race screening that we're having of late in and around Mumbai and different cities as well. So a massive thank you to everyone who are doing all the hard work behind the scenes organizing the race screening. So yeah, Siddharth, if you just introduce yourself and share some
yeah,
words with us.
yeah. Thanks a lot, Naren. Thanks a lot. And I'm Siddharth. And as Naren mentioned, I'm a Tifosi, and more than that, I'm a Sebastian Vettel fan. And yeah, first of all, huge thanks to Naren and huge thanks to all these race screening organizers to bring us all together, help this community grow each and every day. And it's lovely to be here. Just incredible. Thanks a lot.
Great, 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 great. Thanks, Siddharth, Siddharth, for joining us for the chat. And thanks a lot to everyone, of course, Siddharth, Anthony, for joining us for the chat. And he'll straight away dive into the chat. So we are witnessing a very exciting F1 season so far. I think definitely the best season in the hybrid era, if I'm not wrong. And maybe, like, given the last two races that we have, Jeddah and Abu Dhabi, it can possibly be the best F1 season ever. The season's not over yet. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on the championship fight battle going on between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton? I mean, they've recently bought a new engine. There's been a lot of talk going on behind the scenes for the new engine that Lewis Hamilton has taken and the extra speed that he's getting because of that. And the advantage that he's got for the revving as well. There's some revving which, according to Red Bull, is not legal, and Mercedes are suggesting that it's legal, and there's a lot of talk going on behind the scenes for that. So, what are your thoughts on the super exciting battle that we're witnessing, and whether Max Verstappen shall take a new engine as well, so that going into the championship, the last two races, we might like I think this is the only chance that Max Verstappen can win a championship, right? I think he's been trying his best over the past few years to fight Lewis, but I think Honda has done a magnificent job this year with the engines. And yeah, if anyone could share their thoughts, we'll start with you, Ankush.
Well, I think this is also down to the culture that they have at Honda Racing, and this not only comes from Formula One. I remember very clearly they had this culture of winning even in MotoGP. When
Mm-hmm.
I mean with Repsol Honda, there was a time when they had Dovizioso and Pedrosa actually racing for them, and
Mhm.
they were good riders, but they were not championship winning riders, you know. So, and Honda in its, you know, they have this mentality of winning always,
Mhm.
and for them they take it very personally. You know, failure comes to them as a very personal thing. In fact, when Honda announced that they were leaving the sport, I could actually understand why that was, because of all the, you know, the criticism and heat that they had to face, face during their time at McLaren, and it's just not in their DNA, you know, to to feel that they are not doing justice to a sport that they are competing in.
Yeah.
So I think on that point, this year more than I mean, of course, Verstappen is a very talented driver. There is no question about it. But I think Honda, as a power unit supplier, they have done a stellar job of, you know, bringing it up to the level. In fact, I would say better than what Mercedes is, because if you see the performance delta of Mercedes, the, you know, it drops off very quickly with every passing race. So that's why Mercedes decided against using Hamilton's new engine in Qatar, and then rather save it for the final two races. But then if you look at what Red Bull has with Honda, the pace drop isn't as much as it is with Mercedes.
Yes.
So I mean, let's be honest, you know, 2016 was a very good championship with Rosberg was
Yep.
fighting with Hamilton, but then again, it was an intra-team championship, and Mercedes has dominated. I mean, they've steamrolled the competition in the turbo era. Nobody comes close that way, you know.
Yes.
And for Red Bull to, you know, like inch by inch, you know, step by step, to get closer without Mercedes actually realizing that, you know, how close they got, and
Yep.
eventually getting past them. uh, I mean, now it's even for Mercedes. I think more than the constructors championship, it is more the focus is more on Hamilton winning their eighth title and becoming the most successful driver in the
Yep.
history of the sport. So stakes are, you know, higher on the driver side rather than the constructor side, because I think considering the performance that Bottas and Perez have had over the year, I think Mercedes will take the constructors title. So that's not really their main concern at the moment. It's more to do with Hamilton and Verstappen. And I feel personally that considering the momentum that Hamilton and Mercedes have gotten from Brazil,
Yes.
they might just edge them out. The only worry for me right now is reliability, and I hate to say this because people might say I'm jinxing, putting a jinx or something on Hamilton's engine. As long as it's running at the revs it's supposed to run at, and if it stays reliable, then Hamilton will take the title. If something goes kaput like you had in Malaysia, then sorry.
So reliability, that's a very good point you've said. But I think even Max Verstappen's been running the engine since quite some time, right? I think
Yeah, yeah.
so. It can be
Fifth,
the
I think
other way
that's his
around.
fifth race or something. Yeah,
Yeah, so it can be the other way around as well, right? Even I don't like to say that, to be honest, but I think it's the last two races, and I think can happen. And we have a really exciting championship battle that we wouldn't want it to end it like that. Definitely, we'd want it to go down to the wire, to the last lap, to the last race, to the final turn, like how we had in 2016. So
also,
very,
you know, the characteristics of Jeddah, even though it's a street circuit and it's almost 80% of the time you're on full throttle. First practice would actually give us a good indicator as to what the overtaking opportunities could be in the race, because I think they'll be very few and far between. And Abu Dhabi by itself, I mean, other than the two DRS zones that you have back to back, there's not really too much of, you know, I mean, a possibility of overtaking another car other
hmm,
than the two DRS zones that we see
yeah.
in the race. So yeah, I mean, Verstappen faces a very difficult question with, you know, whether he wants to take on a new engine, and if he does, will he be able to make those places up, you know, and recover to get, you know, damage limitation, if I can put
Yeah,
it
I
that way.
think
Yeah.
damage limitation he's been doing that in the last few races. Given we had a penalty in Qatar for I think during qualifying, yeah, was just not following the double wave yellow flag, which was again very controversial. The waves, the double wave was shown on not shown on this dash, but it was shown on the track. So very controversial moment, a very grey area, I think, in the sport where it's still very unclear whether he deserves that penalty or even Vati Bottas or Carlos Sainz for that. Vati Bottas for that matter. So yeah, Siddharth, what are your thoughts on the battle that we are witnessing?
Well, the time from the time I watching, because I was like a kid in 2012 when I was, and I didn't have, I was like not religiously following F1 back then. So by the time I'm watching, this is the first time I had this close battle, and so in that sense, yes, very very good. And and just like you said, you mentioned a few things about Christian, for complaining about Mercedes waving and that sort, and Toto repeating that in some of Red Bull's aspect. But that's always going to happen, because if you have a championship fight which is going right down to the wire, and at the highest level of the sport, no one is going to give you freebies, and you're there to win, and no one is there to come second. If I put in Ayrton Senna's words, being second is the first one to come last, being second is the first one to lose. So
Yeah,
in that sense, yes, both teams will go all out for that, and there's no other way around that. They'll play all they could, off track battles, on track battles, mind games, everything at their disposal, and it's all just, we want a hard fight, we want a fair fight. And this 2021 is has given us that. And in terms of also the engine, because there's a lot of talk about Max probably getting a take should if he should or if he should not take a new engine for Jeddah. But again, I guess if you are Red Bull and say you come to a new track, which supposedly on paper some people say that it's going to favor Mercedes due to the long
yeah,
straights and flat out corners. So again, as Red Bull, if you ask me, yes, there might be more red flags, safety car failures. Red Bull might just even if Verstappen starts behind, he might just maybe go towards the podium places. But if nothing happens, what then? Because there are a lot of lack of opportunity, there's severe lack of opportunities, overtaking opportunities. So in that sense, it might backfire. They could probably, in that sense, they couldn't probably utilize the entire potential of the new engine. But you have the power, but do not have the space to overtake. So that might be a waste in that sense. So I guess if you're Red Bull, they're probably thinking about playing it safe right now, because the risk probably outweigh the reward in this scenario. And if it might have been a regular feature on the calendar, if given on the data, you probably could figure out a way around it if you can maybe do that. But it's a completely new territory. No one has ever ran on this track before, not even MotoGP. As far as Qatar at least had MotoGP races there, but Jeddah is completely new territory, so it's too risky, or probably too new a territory for them to maybe take this risk. And that's probably one of the major reasons I think Red Bull decided against it.
yeah. That's a very good point you shared there. So that I think momentums with Mercedes talk in the town is that Max Verstappen shall take out Eugene, but given that Jeddah circuit, it's on paper favoring Mercedes for sure, long straights, and I think the mind games also Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes are playing like it's 70%. It's gonna be full throttle, and Toto was saying that the car's been the best it has ever been in this entire year. So I think a lot of there's lots at stake, and even I think it can be anyone's spin from here. Like we would want it to go down to the wire, and possibly momentum seems to be with Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, given that the performance in Brazil was really outstanding. I think with the new engine and Lewis Hamilton's performance as well. I think it's and with the driving as well. I think so. I think the combination uh, and the slipstream also that he got during the Brazilian Grand Prix. I think it was a mixed factor of everything. I think that fell into place. I think, and it all just went from Red Bull to Mercedes' favor post the Brazilian Grand Prix. So yeah, Anthony, if you could just share your thoughts as well.
I feel first of all we have to appreciate Red Bull for coming as close as they have. Previous years they have tried, but I mean it was like, no, okay, you tried, but it's not good enough. So that's one thing I think, to be able to take it to the last two races is a major thing. But I just feel like you can feel in a bonus like for Hamilton to take it, right? His PR speech is ready. He knows what he's going to say when he wins at Abu Dhabi, or at least when it's confirmed that he is going to win. But I do feel it's basically down for Hamilton and Mercedes to lose. Like if they make an error somewhere, or if like I guess Mercedes' major problem has been their pit stops. and especially what they do with Bottas, especially. And if you see, they have been a bit pissed. Like the drivers have been a bit pissed about how their pit stops are being handled,
Yeah.
right? So I just feel if they mess it up somewhere over there, so let's say instead of Bottas having like a 30-second pit stop sometime, if it's Hamilton somewhere, so you never know what it might open the room to. So as long as they don't mess it up themselves, I think it's for Hamilton to take, and then you'll have him saying something spectacular, and that's the end of it, and then you go again the next year. Yeah, so I guess for Max to win this one is going to be a lot of factors involved. Maybe the you call it instead of the FIA, you call it the mafia. So something along those lines, people have something to talk about. So yeah, for me at least, I think it's Hamilton and Mercedes that will take it this year. But it's down to them to lose as well. So that's what I have to say.
All right. Yeah. Very interesting point shared again, Anthony. I think a very interesting point. That, Red Bull has been that competitive. I think we shall be really appreciate that after seeing Mercedes dominance for so many years, like 2016 was when Rosberg won it against Lewis Hamilton, but again 2014, 2015 he lost it, and he lost it very badly. He came very close to it, and he lost it towards the end, and post that it was Mercedes dominance only. And we should really appreciate that Red Bull has been able to take the championship battle to the wire, and Honda as well, for that matter. I think we discussed this point with Siddharth the other day that no matter whoever wins, either Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, we should totally respect both the drivers and hats off to both of them and Mercedes Red Bull for giving us one of the best F1 seasons that we are witnessing. Like we are, I think, witnessing history. Like irrespective of whoever wins, like if Lewis Hamilton wins, he wins the A championship. It's history, and if Max Verstappen wins, he's beaten Lewis Hamilton for the championship. That also is history. I mean, a seven-time world champion, and Max Verstappen being in the sport for 7 years and not yet got his first championship. I think both ways, history is being created, and I think we as Formula One fans, are in for a treat, and we should all appreciate that fact for sure. So yeah, let's move on to the battle uh, off the track between Christian Horner and Toto Wolff. What are your thoughts on that, guys? Did you all happen to see the press conference or the Qatar TV press conference between Toto
Yeah.
Wolff and Christian Horner?
I, I did.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Siddharth?
That's just that's what to call a true battle in that sense. There's no war in such in terms of weapons or in some there's simply a war of words. And particularly Christian, I noticed that Christian is a kind of person which if he's in your team, you would probably love him very much because of all the things he's done right. But if he's against you, you would probably hate him the most because he's just that kind of character, just that he'll just probably throw a comment here and there, and he's never too shy to say anything. He'll probably say anything that's on his mind. Take for example the martial comment he did in Brazil, I'm sorry, Qatar, which he was summoned to later by the stewards. So that's particularly that, and again, it's all the effect of the intensity of the battle that has been taking place on track, and that had to transpire off the track as well. And again, as fans, it's like Game of Thrones stuff, and I guess that's nothing more that you wish from the sport other than seeing two very good teams going all out to the best of their abilities to take that one championship. So in that sense, yes, that's absolutely incredible to watch.
Yeah, that sounds quite exciting. Uh, I think that entire conference was all in all Netflix. It was just like I was watching a Netflix series, TV show, only, to be honest. It was a war of words between both of them. I think, Ankush, would you like to share your thoughts on it?
Well, let's be honest. I think Christian Horner, as the team principal of Red Bull, knows that this might be his one shot at the title. Let's be honest, because next year it's going to be an unknown for everyone,
Yeah.
considering the kind of regulation overall that we are going through. for all you know, you might see an Alpine, become a front runner next year. Of course, the the common denominator is going to be that the engines stay the same. So on the powertrain side, Mercedes would still have the edge over the others, but you don't really know what development plan a team takes and where they end up. Like we've seen with Williams and Haas as well, they've gone backwards in the turbo era. So in a way, Christian Horner recognizes and identifies that this is, our shot at the title in the turbo era, beating Mercedes, after their domination for so long. So he basically doesn't want to leave any stone unturned in riling Toto Wolff up. Let's be honest about it. I mean, I have always been on the fence with Christian Horner and his attitude and his comments, because there are certain things I do very much agree with when he spoke about the rising costs for the teams and so on and so forth. But then at the same time, there are instances like Siddharth rightly pointed out with his criticism of the marshalling in Qatar, where in fact now he's actually offered to do community service or something for the FIA, talking about safety and marshalling in general at one of their events. So that's his community service penalty that he's got. So in a way, I think that there is Honor is trying to be a bit more tough than he actually is. And with Toto Wolff, I mean, he's stone cold, in that way. Uh, I, Based on whatever I've seen him and the couple of interactions that I've had with him, he comes across as a very settled guy. He's not really someone who would get really worked up due to the intensity of a championship. And of course, he will make those declarations and proclamations that we are working at it. We are the chasers. We are going to ace it, and so on and so forth. But you will rarely see him make uh, a comment that is out of place. And what you saw with Christian Horner is, obviously, I think there is a lot of displeasure in him with how Mercedes has developed their car. I'm sure backstage he's been trying to find some sort of flaw or loophole that they might have incorrectly used, that he wants to find, and he's not been able to catch Mercedes on the wrong foot. The only time they did was during the DRS infringement after the sprint quali in Brazil. So I think those things are getting to Christian Horner. So even though he puts on a brave face on the outside, inside he's going through a lot, because he knows that this might be his last shot at beating Mercedes, at least in this era, before we go into the new technical regulations period.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very interesting point. Again, I'm just gonna share an image with every one of y'all. Just if you all could just check that. It's basically another meme, not a yeah, another meme that came across in a group chat. Like this is the image that we want to see on the 12th of December. It's just check your WhatsApp, guys. It's basically I'll put the image here as well for everyone to see. It's basically an image between Toto Wolff and who is this guy?
Yeah.
The the Red
Just
Bull
show it here.
chief, right? Red Bull chief. What's his name now?
Helmut
Helmut
Marko.
Marko. Helmut Marko.
Dr. Helmut Marko, yeah.
Yeah, Helmut
Yeah.
Marko. Yeah. So
Dr. Helmut Marko.
yeah. So this image, this is the image that we want to see on the 12th of December, post the championship season ends. So yeah, I mean, I was quite surprised.
Also, sorry to cut you there, Naren.
Yeah,
I
no
think also for Honor specifically, if you actually look back in the championship, there have been instances where they could have been a lot ahead of Mercedes, but they couldn't be, like the coming together at Silverstone for Max Verstappen, the tire blow up for in Baku. That was a short victory for Max Verstappen,
Yep.
which got taken away. So, so I mean, we all talk of these little things that, acha, fine, it's just a DNF. Even Hamilton would have a DNF eventually, but then these little things add up into what is a championship winning team or a driver and who is not. So of course, Mercedes might say post-season, if they win, that, oh, we were operating at a very higher level of RPM than we would have liked to in the final races. So we were actually punching way above our engine's weight. which I'm sure they will say after the season's over to make it sure that we were like really working it big time to make it work. So there are these things, and it's not. I mean, Horner is not a guy who will forget so easily. So the coming together in Silverstone, even in Italy, for example,
Yeah,
so everybody has a right of opinion. So these things would eventually get to him because he knows that those were drop points that Verstappen would have gotten, and he would have actually won the title by now if they had been as they were.
yeah,
So
yeah. Very, very
Just
interesting.
to reiterate
Yeah,
Ankush's comments, one of the major factor for Mercedes' dominance has been the reliability. I guess every season, if you look at that, they probably have the least or probably the most. They are in the very, the DNF rate of Mercedes is very, very less. Just to put together, I guess Valtteri has been a bit unlucky in that sense, but but especially looking at Lewis, his package has been pretty much spot on every single season, every single race. It's hardly a DNF one or two. Again, again in this season at Italy was Hamilton's DNF, which was again you could argue if it was his fault or if it was not. So mechanical retirements for Mercedes have been very, very rare, throughout the turbo hybrid era, and that has played one of the major roles, Mercedes being a dominant force. They are because if you look at Ferrari's challenge in 2017 and 2018. Ferrari had way more reliability issues than Mercedes. I'm not pointing that's not an excuse for Mercedes winning. Of course, they deserved every bit of it because they were
yeah,
simply that good. But the reliability has been a major strength for Mercedes because I've always maintained that even though I'm a Seb fan, I would always love him to win. But it's incredibly difficult to beat Lewis and Mercedes over the span of entire season. Yes, you might beat him like for 2 races, 5 races, 10 races. First half of the season, even say 15 races. But if you say Singapore 2017, which probably many say was a turning point in 2017 season, but over the span of like over the span of like 20 22 races, it's incredibly difficult to beat Lewis, and because every time the main rival does a mistake, Lewis and Mercedes are there to capitalize on it. Say 2018 Italy, 2018 Germany, 2017 Singapore, any of that sort. They're always there to capitalize on that, and that's the reason why, despite Max DNFing, and despite people telling, "Oh, Mercedes have an inferior car this season," Lewis has been right up there. And I'm not a Lewis fan, but he's just too good a driver, and he deserves all the respect from my side. And yes, that's true. It's incredibly difficult. But I hope that said, I genuinely hope that Max and Red Bull do beat them this season.
yeah. I think definitely Lewis is a very difficult driver to beat. I think if you just see like even Nico Rosberg having the same engine and the same team couldn't challenge him. He could challenge him for the championship, but I think he couldn't take him in 2014, 2015. And I think 2016, I think there was like that's what I've heard that they changed the team internally between Nico and Lewis Hamilton. Now that's again
they
a
swapped
very big,
mechanics. Yeah,
yeah,
they
again
swapped
a very
mechanics.
big conspiracy theory. And then Mercedes later said that that's a part of how they operate, right? They change the mechanics during the course of the season, and that's how it was the other that time, and that Lewis Hamilton lost against Nico Rosberg in 2016. I think. I mean, it's a conspiracy theory, like if you go to see, but we get into that as well. It's again a very different topic, but yeah, I think what we are witnessing between Hamilton and Verstappen on the track, I think off the track as well, between Christian Horner and Toto Wolff, I think it's outstanding. I think it's very difficult a situation to be in to you know be fighting for the championship, being so close, and one of them is going to lose. Like one of them is going to win, and unless we get a tie, which is still quite possible. Right? I mean, I saw an article on WTF1 which read what happens if Max and Lewis end the championship on a tie. So I think it's going to go down to the one who's got most wins and then possibly
Yeah,
both.
I think then that would be Max. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be Max. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I hope it doesn't go down like that. But yeah, if it goes down like that, like we definitely We are in for a treat. I think Jeddah and Saudi Arabia is a new racetrack. We've never raced there before, and it's just recently constructed as well. Even Abu Dhabi, I think they've done some reconstruction in some parts of the racetrack, so it's going to be quite a close battle that we're going to witness between Max and Lewis for sure. And let's hope we get a really exciting battle and may the best driver and team win. And we just hope it finishes on the racetrack and not off the racetrack because they will do. So yeah, I think Anthony, would you like to share some thoughts on Krishna?
Yeah, I guess most of their, their I wouldn't call it like a battle or like a, as that put as a war or something, but it's quite petty if you go to see about it. Especially, I should think about when Toto Wolff was a bit out of character and he just went, "I have written you a mail. Can you check it?" It just felt so comical. Like it was out of character for him. And what I like about it is obviously Honda has created a really nice engine that is somewhat able to compete, right? Or you could even say it's as good enough, or maybe if you're a bit delusional, you can say it's even better. Perhaps I'm not going to go into the technical details of it, but the thing is, you have created a good engine, and it's been down to Red Bull doing their own tomfoolery at times, like as you were discussing, those DNA finishes, something here or there, that didn't help their cause. Otherwise, Max would have been champion by now. They just gave like Hamilton an open window to come in and fight back. You see in like these WWE matches where the other person is, you can just pin the person, then you just do something random, and then the person starts to fight back. So that's what's happening with them, has become sort of comical at this point, especially when you consider the the things that are happening off the racetrack. But I just feel if Honor, like the stuff that he has been pulling off, if he does manage to win at least one of the two, the driver championship or the constructors championship, with that he has a huge momentum going in psychologically for the next year, right? We will not consider it, even he might not think of it that way, but it's a huge momentum because
Yep.
anyone that wants to compete now has to think about Mercedes as well as Red Bull as two people, like two racing teams on equal footings. So I guess it will really affect what the other teams think and how they plan as well. And Mercedes especially will have a lot of think about it. When they added Sergio Perez, people are like, oh, after a few races, oh, Gasly got more points than him, or
Yep.
Albon will have done better. But the thing is, Perez gives them that option for them to experiment in those, for the pit strategies. So I guess those two factors, and if Red Bull wins, it's going to be really massive for the next year as well. Even though everyone's in the dark about how those cars will perform against each other. So yeah, that's all.
So yeah, it's been quite an interesting chat so far. I think we'll move on to how interesting and how important it is for Bottas and Perez to play a very important role for the constructors championship, like possibly even the drivers championship, right? I think. I think we have sprint races and we have fastest lap points where even 1 point matters a lot. So it might just go down to the wire, and maybe Max or Lewis, either of them could possibly win by 1 point as well. So what are your thoughts on how important it is for Bottas or Perez? Maybe the last lap of Abu Dhabi, go in for the pits, go for the soft set of tires, and not lose position as well. Maybe it can be constructors. It can affect constructors as well. If Bottas pits or if Perez pits, they'll definitely lose position, right, from P3, P4 to P7, P8, and take that fastest lap, that 1 point. Definitely, they're stealing the points from their opponents, right? So, what are your thoughts on how important is it for both of them to perform at the highest level for the next two races? Yeah, who would like to start first?
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
Pole position.
Yeah,
Specifically with Bottas, now by his own admission, he said that he went through a time where he needed to really work on his mental strength, which I think even Rosberg and Grosjean pointed out
yeah,
in a recent interview that they had between the two of them. So I think considering where Mercedes has been compared to the earlier years, they have made some howlers in their strategic calls, as Anthony had rightly pointed out with their pit stops as well, and sometimes even with how they were actually planning to be in a race. Like I remember at one of the races, Bottas was like, "Why don't you guys listen to me when I tell you something?" So that is, that is how blatant he was, because that in itself shows that, what kind of feedback they're taking from voters and what they believe is expendable and what is actually valuable for them. So, see, Perez's work has been cut out. He's got his contract for next year. He knows what his role is as Verstappen's wingman, if you can put it that way. I don't want to use that word, but but unfortunately, we are at a stage where you need to use that term. With Bottas, though, he's on the way out. He's going to Alpha. He wants to finish the season on a high. But then, based on what he has in terms of history with Hamilton and the team, I'm sure he would not want to be a hindrance to Hamilton's charge to the title. And like I said before, I still think even though Red Bull would so much want to have the constructors title, I still think that they would be wanting to push Verstappen towards the drivers title, and then see how the constructors title pans out for them, because let's be honest, they're leading in the drivers title, so that by default should have, I mean, it should get priority for them. So Perez, I am still a bit on the fence with how car setup, how comfortable he is with car setups and everything, because he's been quite mercurial this year with his performances, which in a way kind of shows you that whoever is there in that second seat at Red Bull, he struggles, whether it's a Gasly, whether it is a uh, an Albon, or even a Perez for that matter, who had such a brilliant
Yeah.
2020 with Racing Point. I don't know why I was going to say Force India there, but
A Kimi fan, a
so
Kimi fan, hence a Force India or whatever it is called.
so I mean, so for Perez, I think Perez would be in a better position mentally, because he knows uh, that's his job to support Verstappen. And considering the level of performance that Hamilton and Verstappen have had in the previous few races, they've actually uh, lapped guys till P4, or I mean till P5 or P6, and they've opened up such a big gap to those behind that they actually get free pit stops. Sorry. So, I mean, if let's say if Verstappen is P2 and he has a free stop, then why wouldn't he, just take the point for the fastest lap? But then, would a Bottas be able to actually get within that pit window of a Verstappen and basically negate that call that Red Bull can make for him? Or would a Perez actually be close enough to a Hamilton to negate, that option for Hamilton and Mercedes? Uh, if I were to compare, I think Bottas would still hold an edge over Perez, primarily because he's more at ease with the car setup and everything. He's had a long time at Mercedes now, so he knows how the car behaves and everything. Perez, even though he has had a decent year, he's still finding his feet at new tracks specifically. So it could be a hit and a miss with Perez, but I think Bottas would have a major role to play, considering that he's been there for a longer period of time and he knows how things work. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting, because this single point, I call it single point nonsense. I mean, if you're giving a point for the faster lap, you might as well give a point for pole position as well, like how we have in the lower series. So, but yeah, I mean, in a way, it's added a nice twist. Initially, when you had just one team running away with the championship, you never really understood the logic of having a point for the fastest lap. But now, when you have a championship this close in both title races, you suddenly feel okay. This is quite an appealing prospect to have. So I think Bottas holds an edge over Verstappen. Over Perez there. So yeah.
All right, all right. Yeah, that's great to know, Coach. I think it's definitely quite close, and I think it'll be very important for the strategy team to make the right call for the fastest lap pit stop, or maybe even the tire pit stop, so the general normal race tire pit stop as well. I think it's all going to go down to the wire. Maybe constructors as well, but yeah, the drivers as well. It can affect the drivers' championship, like I can just see. the 1 point fastest lap since the championship battle is so close. Yeah, if you could just share your thoughts on the same as well.
Yeah, I guess just Ankush just pretty much summed it up perfectly. But in that sense, yes, I in practical sense, yes, Valtteri does hold a definite edge over Sergio because he's homed into the Mercedes team for like 4 or 5 years, 2017 from 2017 years. So in that sense, but again, then I guess qualifying now plays a very, very important role in
Yeah,
both of these races because Jeddah again is narrow, probably presumably lack of overtaking opportunities, and then Abu Dhabi as well. We know it's difficult to pass in that sense, or it's difficult for someone to like 2016 when Lewis and Nico, it's sort of he blocked Nico, slowed him down.
yeah,
So in that sense, it might be difficult to overtake, and then again, qualifying would play a very important role in setting up the pecking order for the race day. And in that sense, yes, Valtteri holds edge over Checo. If you look at the season-long qualifying sessions. So and then particularly, I'll be looking at what qualifying is because I guess now more than ever, especially with given the what's at stake and what the tracks are to to race at. I guess qualifying becomes very, very important. But just imagine this scenario that constructors championship both Valtteri and Checo pit on the last lap on a new set of softs. And now both of them have to do one thing: just set the fastest lap, take the point, and then you win the constructors. So that comes down to absolutely nailing the lap, hooking it up perfectly. And the one who does that, gets the constructors. So again, this sort of scenario might play at Abu Dhabi, might not. We never know. But just to add a bit of drama.
yeah. That's a very interesting scenario that you put in, and it's quite possible it can be that, right? Then both of them will get traffic as well, for sure, because I'm pretty sure if they're at the top of the grid, like around P4, P5, or even P6 for that matter, they'll get a lot of traffic for the final lap on their fresh off. So anything can happen, and yeah, Anthony, if you would like to share your thoughts and let us know gonna who has the upper hand between Bottas and Perez.
hmm So I just feel this Bottas versus Perez comparison is a bit unfair because you're not including other factors. That is Pierre Gasly. You might leave out Sonora depending on your own this thing, but I guess Gasly has been performing quite well with basically with Alpha Tauri, and he has also been the one who has given them a few extra laps of coverage when going into these tough battles. So yeah, I guess I mean George Russell has been doing okay-ish. Latifi is sometimes non-existent in races if you look at it from a competitive perspective. So it really has been like an edge of Bottas going on against Perez and Gasly. But yeah, I guess Bottas just had a superior car. Bottas when against Verstappen, that's the best comparison I feel when it's up against Verstappen is that he just like he has a soft spot for him or something. In the French GP, he just like it almost felt like he let him pass on purpose, like go ahead, do your thing. And there have been a few instances as well where they expect Bottas to hold Verstappen off, but he just does something silly or just lets him off, and that's all. As for Perez, I feel that he has done quite well for his first show. Obviously, I just feel the car is set up for Verstappen. Like both Red Bull cars are just meant for Verstappen, and Perez just has to adjust. Just that his body fitting is done according to it, and apart from that, the entire setup is suited for Verstappen. So he has done okay-ish. And the thing is, Perez has been picking fights. I feel with people who he's sure of beating. Like that fight with Hamilton was great, amazing. But I just saw him go up against Norris once. I don't remember which race it was. I think it was the Dutch GP,
Yeah, Austria. I guess they
Austria.
both got a penalty. There's a penalty
Right.
scenario there. Yeah.
I think he got two penalties if I'm not wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I just felt this guy likes competing against people he knows he can beat on paper. So I guess he just needed confidence to beat or compete against the other two Mercedes, just like Verstappen. But I mean, I'm not sure with the car setups and all. So it could be something they only know. Like okay, they tell him okay, don't fight these guys or just do your thing. So that's there. So I just feel like a bit of an unfair comparison to just involve Bottas and Perez, and because Gasly has also been someone who has been very beneficial to this entire scenario that we have right now for us.
Yeah, that's like a very interesting point. Like Red Bull has two teams, in the on the grid, and sorry. So I think that will also play a very important role in the constructors or the drivers' championship as well. We never know. Gasly has been performing really well, like Anthony suggested. Like he's been constantly on a P5, P4, P6 throughout the season, and even qualifying pace. He's got the qualifying pace, and maybe in the races he's lost out a couple of times, but I think overall he's been really consistent, and possibly he can play a very important role for the constructors or for the drivers as well. So a really interesting point there put on by you, Anthony.
I also think the opening lap tussles are going to be very very interesting because suddenly if you have either Hamilton or Verstappen going slow off the line, and then suddenly you have Perez and Bottas getting into their mix, or for that matter, like if you remember in Mexico, like Anthony was talking about that, Bottas left the door open for Verstappen to go
Yeah,
around,
yeah,
and then he actually got spun around, and then he was bumped down to the back of the field. So you can have some of these bizarre incidents happening. Even with Perez, he's had a couple of incidents that have kind of messed up his entire race. So you can't really be sure because how these two guys have a race day. You don't want them to get into, even the Ferrari McLaren tussles because those guys are also fighting very closely for the constructors championship, and Perez and Bottas themselves are fighting for P3 in the drivers title. So that again, there is a certain amount of stake there as well. So you can't really be sure as to what is going to transpire in the final two rounds. It's just that, I mean, they have to keep it clean. That's the first thing, and then once that is there, that is done, and then build from there on up until the checkered flag. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. Again, very interesting points. I think we are witnessing a lot of battles going on throughout the field with McLaren, Ferrari, Alpine, and AlphaTauri, and uh, there's a battle between Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, and Charles Leclerc as well, and who suggested, so battle between Perez and Bottas as well. So a lot of battles that are quite close. I think if you go to see different battles, they're battling against each other. They know who they're battling against, and I think it's really like I've been saying, it's a treat for all F1 fans and the perfect advertisement for F1. And apart from Max and Lewis, all right, let's maybe move on to what is the most exciting battle that you're looking forward to, and maybe let's maybe move on from Perez and Bottas and Mercedes and Red Bull as well.
I wish I could say Alfa Romeo and Williams, but unfortunately, that's too big a battle for Alfa Romeo to to climb right now. The gap is too big. But
Yeah,
I think McLaren and Ferrari, they've been uh, quite decent. In fact, I'm actually amazed at Ferrari's resurgence of late. McLaren has kind of fallen off the grid in the last 3-4 races, and suddenly now you're looking at Ferrari getting the measure and seemingly cementing their hold on P3 in the championship. Alpha Tauri was actually very much in the mix for against Alpine for
yeah,
P5, but then I don't know what happened in Qatar. Uh, they had very good one lap pace, but then in race trim they were very poor, and both Gasly and Sonoda went backwards.
yeah,
So Alpine, of course, they've been pumping in a lot of money as a works team, so they obviously want to reach a level where um, they can fight for victories first on a regular basis, and then possibly move on to becoming a championship winning contender. I mean, championship contender. So, but I think for me personally, I'm very very pleased with what I've seen in the McLaren and Ferrari battle. Uh, of course, if we never had a Mercedes Red Bull, then we would be talking about the good old days when Hakkinen and Schumacher were going wheel to wheel, or you had the likes of Raikkonen and Montoya fighting with Schumacher and Barrichello. Of course, 2005 Ferrari wasn't that strong, but then 2006 Schumacher came back big time. So yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You definitely want these two historic teams, that
yeah.
have been in Formula One for so long. Similarly for Williams as well. You want them to really be there up there, and doing so well. Of course, with Mercedes and Red Bull and all, you've gotten um they've got their own set of potent employees like Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley, like at Red Bull, and then at Mercedes too, you've got guys like both the James, and then you've got Bono. So these guys are very talented, but then of course you still want to see the traditional teams do well. So for me, I think the McLaren Ferrari battle is very intriguing, and I think that Ferrari might nick it at the end, and it would be a disappointment for McLaren considering the year that they have had, at least
Yep.
the first half,
Yep.
to see them fall back the way they did. Yeah.
Yep. That's a very great point again that you mentioned. Like I think McLaren, Ferrari, both of them. I think McLaren have kind of. I think both teams like Ferrari also didn't have the best of the years last year and maybe 2019 as well. They kind of have been saying that they've been developing the cars for 2022 and they've been focusing on that mainly. But I think they've come back significantly this year, right from the start with the signing of Carlos Sainz as well, and even Charles Leclerc, I think he's been the underdog according to me. Like he's had a good few races where he's finished P4 and he's got a one podium as well. And I think Lando Norris has performed magnificently. I think he's got an excellent first half of the season, but I think second half he didn't have the best of. I think post Russia, I think he's just kind of gone down the wire for him. Like he's just not been the best of at his performances like he used to earlier. So I think it might have affected him. I think any driver like been in that situation, it would have been really crazy. And yeah, it's quite a crazy battle going on between McLaren and Ferrari, and even I think Ferrari's just gonna have an upper hand. But I think it's just anything's possible, right? One DNF and Ricciardo on the podium, or maybe Norris on the podium. I think would be possible. Yeah, so that. What are your thoughts on this?
Very, very true. No, in that sense, yes. And Coach did mention that brilliantly that I guess nobody expected Ferrari to be P3 by the. If you ask anyone by the end of 2020, people would have bet against it definitely, including probably diehard tifosis like us. We had to be realistic at that point, but that has been incredible. And yes, in that sense, Mattia Binotto, if you look at 2020, people would have questioned. I myself, didn't like how the way he handled Sebastian Vettel scenario, but this year he has, been that good. He has been a major force driving Ferrari back to P3, driving Ferrari, pushing them to where they belong actually at the top. And yes, so as much as he has been hated for the past year, with criticism coming from someone myself as well, he has done a good job this year. And probably, he just may mention that somewhere, I guess, probably the past days that they haven't really done a lot of stuff for the 2021 car. The main long-term focus is for 2022 car. So they turned out pretty good in 2021. We can only see, hope how 2020 turns out to be. And in that sense, yes, as Ankush had said, McLaren and Ferrari have been a pretty intense battle to watch. But also Charles versus Carlos has been very, very good to watch. I guess no one expected Carlos to be come into team straight away and challenge Charles for his are almost level on points. So like just a single digit number separating them in terms of points. And there actually been weekends where Charles wasn't at his best, in terms of, if you ask me, his raw pace. And Carlos has taken the lead, and Carlos has stepped up and themselves and done the lap damage limitation and chipped in and took those points away. I think Charles has scored what 51-52% of Ferrari's points this season, and Carlos has 48-49%. So that is massive. That is probably the closest of all teams I know. That's just a percentage separating them. So that has been massive. And that apart, if you look at the funny side, then Schumacher versus Mazepin, or Sebastian versus global warming, or Sebastian versus countries that don't provide basic human rights. So that again, off-track things, yes, but on-track battles definitely. McLaren, Ferrari, and the intra-Ferrari driver battle has been very exciting to watch.
Yeah.
I also think Siddharth, Sainz has been so good at settling in with Ferraris because I
Exactly.
was reading somewhere that they actually let him use the McLaren style paddles on the Ferrari
Oh,
car. Yeah, yeah. So
wow,
that in a way actually helped him, adapt quicker to his Ferrari. So
wow.
yeah,
That's
so the
impressive.
McLaren style clutch paddles were what they gave him, and they're like, okay, yeah, cool. You can use this adjustment on your car and
Also,
see how
one
you.
more interesting fact I read about Carlos is whenever he moves to a new team, he switches his home to a place
Yeah.
nearby that team
Yeah,
factory.
yeah,
So now
yeah,
he's basically, I guess, close to Maranello. Back at when he was in at Renault, he was close to
yeah.
their factory, and with McLaren, he was close to Woking. So
Hmm.
in that sense, again, yes, that gives him a lot of factory time, and that is again a very good sign of
Yeah.
Carlos doing the best he can.
Yeah, I think.
But also with
Yeah.
sorry, also with the intra Ferrari battle, it's going to be interesting because when Leclerc came on board in 2019,
Yeah,
suddenly you
yeah,
saw
I was going to mention
Sebastian
that.
coming under pressure, and then eventually we saw Sebastian leave the team at the end of 2020. Now with Carlos coming in, I mean, of course, he's not a threat to Charles yet, but if in case things get a bit tasty next year, then it'll be interesting to see what Charles does, or would he still stay as number one, and or would Ferrari, say, okay, time to look away from our FDA graduate and go with the Red Bull ex Red Bull graduate, and give him more opportunities to fight on the sharper end of the grid than Charles. So that is going to be an interesting point to see as to how Ferrari evolves with driver performance going into next year.
Yeah. I'm just sending again a very interesting meme. It was the only time the only time Ferrari beat McLaren, or possibly Ferrari beating McLaren on the racetrack. It's actually Mattia Binotto hitting, just pretending to hit Ricciardo as well. So quite a funny one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very good. Also, this Carlos is probably running out of contract by the end of 2022, right? He has a 2-year contract, and Charles is probably there till 2024. So that is very again that is yeah. So probably by the end of next year, we are again going to have contract talks coming in because I guess a lot of people on the grid have the contracts until the end of 2022, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
So yeah, yeah,
and
mid
how
season.
and how
Yeah,
Mick Schumacher does, that's going to be also
exactly,
a major
exactly,
factor
exactly.
because Ferrari, for all the, I mean, how emotional Ferrari is, that on that point,
No,
they would
and
obviously
very
want to
true.
have the Schumacher name back on board. That's
Yeah.
one of the very
I guess
reasons.
one
Yeah.
of the also one of the comments I read in 2020 or early 2021 was someone mentioning that Mattia had publicly spoken that they are looking to bring in Mick by 2024 or 2023. I'm not sure which year exactly. And people criticize him for just even before Carlos has stepped into a Ferrari, he was
Hmm.
publicly mentioning the fact that
Hmm.
we are looking at Mick for
Wow.
down the lane, but uh, I'm not sure if that was entirely true because it's a long time back. I don't remember, but again, yeah, definitely Mick Schumacher. Schumacher name itself holds a very, very, profound place in Maranello.
And currently, I think in terms of driver programs, Ferrari is spoiled for choice with the kind of roster they have. The only other roster
Exactly.
that I can think of, which is equally good, is Alpine, because
Yep.
they
Yes.
got like Christian Lundgaard and
Oscar Piastri.
unfortunately Yazoo gang use I don't know why it's Zhao, not Zoo.
So,
He left for Alpha, but then yeah, Oscar Piastri is a very good find. So,
Very good. Yeah,
so
yeah.
but yeah, but still, I mean, in terms of driver programs, Ferrari is really spoiled for choice. So it's going to be interesting to see how long they can persist with this and how these two perform going into next year, considering the kind of resurgence Ferrari is going through in the latter half of the year, and I'm sure they'll carry this momentum into next year as well. So
Yeah,
it's
very
going to
good
be quite
point.
interesting. Yeah.
Very
Forza
good.
Ferrari.
Forza Ferrari. Grande ragazzi.
Anthony is going like, oh boy, these guys are at it again.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
not
But
really
McLaren
something
again,
like.
sorry, Anthony.
No, it's nothing like that. I'm just basically just wondering like so I was going to Twitter a bit. So Max has been really on it. So first lap he is like I guess 1.8 second clear of everyone else. But obviously these are just like practice laps. But
Yeah,
he
back
just
to back.
really
Yeah.
been on. He wants to be in his zone. So that was one thing. And coming to the battles, I guess I've been very surprised by whoever Alpine has been wanting to fight this season in random races. Fight like a lion. That was one thing. With Perez and Ocon last race around. But yeah, I guess they brought in some of the most interesting moments for me at least. Alonso, not letting Hamilton pass for a few laps. So those were something that like
Lucky.
I like personally. And off the track is Sebastian versus his urge to touch the rear wing and the front wing.
Oh yeah, that was nice. That was nice. Getting a 50,000 or 25,000 euro fine for just doing that, and he just said that on the radio. I'm going to do that.
But also, with McLaren, considering, I mean, how young Lando is, I mean, he's a good racer, but when I consider his performance in F2 when he was racing against Russell, uh, I mean, I personally felt that he was lacking something. I don't know what, but in me, I didn't. I mean, I saw something that he's a brilliant driver. Let me get that out. But comparing him to Russell, I still think he lacks something. And I mean, with Ricardo coming in, I expected him to have a slightly better season. But then, of course, with Ricardo, I think it's more about he takes a little bit more time to get used to how a car works and the adjustments he needs to make. Now, how McLaren approaches this, because at the end of the day, Lando is their long-term prospect. Lando is going to be the one who leads their charge, and how long would Ricardo stay with them, considering his age and his kind of performances that he's been putting in? Uh, because frankly, I mean, considering what he has done in Renault and McLaren currently, Ricardo ideally should stay at McLaren and not look elsewhere, because his level of performances have been borderline mediocre, if I can put it that way. So yeah, that in a way is also hampered McLaren quite a lot, because in terms of Carlos and Charles, on track they've been very very consistent, which unfortunately neither Lando and Daniel have been
Yeah.
able to replicate for McLaren, and that is one very important thing that they need to address for next year if they want to steer clear of this P3 championship fight with another team. So yeah, that's going to be very important for them.
Yes.
So these two last, I mean, these last two races are going to be very important for McLaren, not just for the season here, but also for the upcoming uh, season in the new regulations here.
Yes, I think that I think quite boils down to the relationship that's there between the two drivers as well. I think it's really important for both drivers to think for the best of the team first, and with if you're trying for McLaren, right, it's not fighting for the drivers' championship. Definitely, it's the team that comes first, right? So I think it's very important for both the drivers to have a really good relationship off the racetrack and on the racetrack both. I think it's really important, mainly because you see Charles and Carlos, they kind of laugh their asses out on the racetrack when they have, just doing track walks or something like that, or even when they're doing something for the media in general. And definitely, Carl Lando is really good. They do share a good relationship as well, but they're not in the same team. Unfortunately, they're
Yeah,
competitors right
that's
now.
That's a very valid point. I mean, what if you had a Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris fighting for the title? Would they be going out together golfing, or would there be a friction coming into their friendship like we saw with Hamilton and Nick and
Yeah,
Rosberg? You know, so I mean, as long as
Netflix
you're
love
not,
you.
yeah.
Netflix loves you.
Also, I think that in a way is kind of also tarnished Horner and Toto's relationship, because I mean there was a time when Toto was, I mean, they were undisputed kings of the turbo era and Red Bull were nowhere there,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean everything was smooth sailing between the two. Now suddenly when the stakes are high, it's a high intensity environment. Both are at loggerheads. So would a Carlos Sainz and a Lando Norris still have that same kind of camaraderie and level of comfort? Well, that is, I mean, considering the fact that they're rivals,
yeah.
and
Then
they
I
work
was
for
not.
two of the most arch rivals. I mean, two arch rival teams, going at it against each other. So, what kind of allowances Ferrari would give Carlos in terms of spending? Because I mean, let's be very honest. Sometimes, even in informal conversations, if a driver is talking to a driver, you sometimes might leak out something that you are not supposed to share.
Yes.
Sort of all these things. So they have to be very very careful of what they say and what they don't. So that's an interesting thing. Yeah.
Yes. I think that's very true, and I think there's a lot of banter as well that goes on between the drivers. I think I just saw recently, like between Russell and Lando, like I think Russell suggested, or Lando suggested Russell that I expected you to get 24 points at least in this season,
At the
and
press conference.
yeah, and then he
Yeah.
suggested that I expected you to win a race, which was directly a really a really bad
Yeah,
one to,
true.
but yeah, a very difficult one to take as well. I think really important for drivers to be uh,
Yeah. Also
gelling.
talking on, Ankush's point before about
Yeah,
Daniel was very aptly put. And also I think we can picture basically two category of drivers. Where we say one hand we have a Fernando or Lewis Hamilton. If you give them any car, they'll give you the best lap time out of it. I mean, then you have someone like Daniel or Sebastian Vettel who have a lot of prerequisites in the sense. First of all, they need a car which they can absolutely trust,
yeah,
which they would want to believe that it does what they want it to, and absolutely no uncertainty whatsoever, and have the team behind them, being the absolute right zone in terms of mindset. So in that sense, they have a bit more prerequisites than say Luis or Fernando. But when everything clicks and on their day, they can be bloody fast and give everyone a run for their money. So I just hope, as we have seen the Diners in the past, he just takes a bit long to adjust to a new team. Like his first year when it wasn't very good by his standards, and but his second year was, he did surprise everyone, and that's what Daniel is. So again, this year, his first half was pretty dull by his standards, but he did bounce back to some extent in the second half. So again, he will be looking to probably finish the year on a high and settle in as nicely as he can, and come back stronger, and just be up there with Lando and fight with McLaren wherever they are next year, hopefully.
great. So yeah, I think we just take a couple of what's the favorite radio moment so far in the entire championship?
Radio moment.
Yeah, favorite radio message of the
Wow.
entire championship so far.
Okay.
Lot I can I this is the lot of the one I can remember Kimi. I don't know which race exactly. He said, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And the engineer says, "No, Kimi, we can't hear." And Kimi said, "Oh, but you answer still." So that was a hilarious take. And again, Toto, Michael, I've just sent you an email. Could you check that, please? And Michael says, "Oh, I don't deliberately access my emails during a race because I'm overlooking a race." So pretty iconic.
Yeah, I think we need the Michael Massey FIA radio message, more of FIA radio messages, and maybe a
Exactly, exactly.
Toto Wolf camera special. Like
Even
what it was.
Alpine at the US Grand Prix, saying that is it okay for a driver to overtake somebody outside the track and then say no. So it's okay for Raikkonen to do that for the Senate. To Michael says no. That's what he just did to us. So, pretty hilarious moments this time around. Yes.
Yeah, Ankush Anthony, if you could.
Wow. I think it could be very difficult because okay. I think Seb also has some really tasty communications.
Yeah.
A few of them are borderline uh, questionable, but
I've got
so
something loose between my legs.
yeah. I mean that was last year, but now this year again he did say something really bizarre. I think the last weekend or something. So, uh, and then yeah, I mean one was obviously Bottas, the one that I said, why don't you guys listen to me
Oh
when I
yeah.
when I say something? So I think that was that was
Poor
interesting
guy.
because uh, you you could know that this guy's reached a point of desperation, and it's not just for that race per se. It's been simmering up in his.
Yeah.
So that was one of the I mean that kind of sums up his time at Mercedes for all that he has done for the team and everything, and
Yeah.
the this is James and blah blah those kind of moments. So yeah.
Also, one more I remember, just on the top of my head, Nikita's radio in Monaco. I don't remember if it was race or quali, but his engineer asked him to probably move a certain switch to position 80 for
Oh,
race or
yes, yes,
something like that.
yes.
Yeah, and he said, "No, man, I'm driving in Monaco. It's very difficult." And then the same thing he tells him the next race in Baku, and before he even finishes, Nikita says, "I'm done. I'm not driving in Monaco anymore."
Yeah, I think that was quite funny. He said that.
Yeah,
It was quite funny, I think.
yeah,
Actually, it's
I
quite
remember that.
difficult to, in general, like just
Yeah,
switch,
Monaco is yeah.
make switches. Like even on the PS4, I kind of, uh, you know, uh, it's very difficult to change switches. It's very difficult, yeah. And actually, on the steering wheel, I'm pretty sure it'll be even more worse.
Ankush might know now.
I was actually the only sessions that I've done currently are on time trial, so I still need to see how different things can be, once you start using more of those buttons. But yeah, I mean, as of now, uh, interestingly though, the two pedals below are actually not clutch pedals; they
Okay.
are throttle and brake. So you don't need a pedal set; you can just use the throttle and brake.
Oh, nice.
But I don't
Nice.
know. I think I'll have to reconfigure that. So yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite a job, I must say, for these guys to go through all these different
Yeah.
setups and different modes and all that. And but yeah, one of the really interesting communications I love with Ferrari is and slow button on, mode charge, mode charge. I love that. The way they say it, it's so poetic.
Yeah, I think that they have a lot of passion. I think they do it.
The back end, Sebastian, P1, Sebastian, P1, P1. Very good. Yeah, that was great.
Anthony,
The
what's been
other
your favorite? Yeah, sorry.
the other one though is that I mean, if you actually follow the F1 TV onboards, you get a lot of these like minute. I mean, I do Raikkonen onboards every day, so they have Julian Simon is his race engineer. He basically counts down the time up until the formation lap. So he's like, okay, 2 minutes till the lights, a minute to the lights. So that's how they keep on informing the driver. So those are quite interesting communications because they check about different they do a number of systems checks as well, which actually don't get relayed over normal TV. So yeah, that's quite a interesting bit.
Yeah, F1 TV, yes. And yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
Yeah,
F1.
Anthony, if you could just share your favorite
Yeah.
radio moment.
For me, it has to be the email bit as well because I have had those moments where people just send an email across from 10, call me to tell me that they've sent an email, and it was one of those moments like, and there's like, oh, I don't check my emails on during the main race or whatever. And I could relate to it, and it was much funnier because of that one reason. Although it's not like a driver or engineer moment, but I guess that tops it for me.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think for me let's stop him behind like a lion. I think Alonso saying that on the radio was quite. I think it was quite important for him to finish on the podium, and he could. I think even thinking of about the other driver where he is and what he's got to do. I think you need to be really smart to just think that and tell that on the radio. Think about the other driver and tell him what he's got to do and you're like, we've got a really good position and we can take this. So yeah, I think that was me for me was the radio moment of the year, and I'm pretty sure there are others as well. Like it's very difficult to pick one and say that is the best. But yeah, I think we'll definitely wrap it pretty soon, Anthony. If you could just stay for a bit as well, like 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure. Uh, Coming up to the next one would be what has been the best moment of the championship till date. It can be anything. It can be something that's uh, changed the entire scenario from Mercedes to Red Bull or Red Bull to Mercedes or Max Lewis or yeah any moment that stands out for you in the championship.
For me personally, I think it will be Hamilton burning his entire set on Baku. He just, said it's a marathon, not a sprint. Then he did the opposite and tried to overtake Perez.
Oh,
And I guess that's where they felt, okay, these guys are nervous now. Like, they have been playing this hide and seek sort of a game on team radios. But this is where they gave it away, where they, okay, you realize they are feeling that pressure from them.
Yes, yes, yes. I think again, I think that's a lot of mind games going on, even on the. Sorry for that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of mind games, the radio messages, and even what they say off the track. I think that was totally a mind game. Like it's not a sprint; it's a marathon. I think that's totally just to give it to everyone, especially Matthew Stafford right in the face, and it just uh, came back to him. So yeah, I think that was quite an interesting moment. I think no one expected him to just go straight, miss that turn, and Max Verstappen, I think, had a good lead in the championship at that time. I think. So that you're on mute, I think.
Yeah, so also, the Lord, there have been a lot, but probably one of the one moment which I think I personally haven't seen and happening anytime before is Lewis starting alone in Hungary by the end of second
Oh,
formation lap. Everyone else pitting for in slicks. I think I don't think I've ever seen that before. So that was pretty novel in that sense. And in terms of championship, I guess there have been pretty a lot of those actually. Hamilton's qualifying in Monaco, which it potentially gave Red Bull and Max the lead of the championship. Then the Silverstone incident between those, which
yeah,
again gave the advantage to Lewis. And what happened in the next race in Hungary, Valtteri just crashing into two Red Bulls. And after that, again, after Austria, they were pretty much leading, And if Lewis wins this championship, I guess three races, which probably turned it on for Lewis. Two races, I would say, it would be Silverstone and Brazil, because again, by Brazil, Mercedes enjoyed Red Bull enjoyed a good advantage. I mean, in terms of Max enjoyed a good advantage over Lewis, and yeah, no one expected Lewis to cut through the field that way, the way he did, and so Silverstone, just really narrowed the gap between himself and Max, which was probably 31 or 32 points
yeah.
by the end of sprint in Silverstone, and Brazil, we all know what happened. So incredible race.
Yes, definitely, Ankush. Good share your thoughts.
I think one obvious pivotal moment, of, like Anthony pointed out, was Baku, where Hamilton basically threw away the possibility of either scoring a victory or finishing second, which I think in hindsight, second would have not been so bad because then he would be leading the championship now by 10 points. And the stakes would have been so much different then. So that in itself was one very big incident. Italy also was equally an interesting point in the championship because there was, this coming together, and then
Yeah,
they hit on Max for not going and checking out how his co-driver and competitor was doing. So that again was one important. But I think more more than both these two things, the one I would say really for me was Belgium, because everything was decided on qualifying, and
oh
uh,
yes,
if Verstappen was on pole, he won the race by default.
yeah.
And then you had Russell come out of nowhere to
In
finish P2,
P2, yeah.
and then Hamilton came out in P3. So that was a bit of a shocker for Hamilton, at least, because I think if we had actually had a proper race, Hamilton would have won that race. So that for me was one very very important. And then of course with the FIA doing just two laps, people were a bit confused with the countback
Yes.
and everything. So I think the non-running of the Belgian Grand Prix uh, basically had will have an role to play in the championship.
All right, all right. For me, for sure, it's gonna be Brazil. I think Brazil was just. I think it's quite difficult to digest still. Like how everything panned out on Brazil. Like Lewis Hamilton taking a penalty, going back the grid, starting P20, finishing P5, P6 in the sprint race. Like sprint race being just 20 laps, and even during the race, he started like I think P11 or P10, and he finished P1. I think just by lap three, he was right in the P3 in the podium position. And for a moment, I thought that possibly he's just going to lap Max Verstappen if he's just going to go at this pace, which is like if he laps Max Verstappen, I think he's definitely won the championship. Like there's no way that Max Verstappen can come back from there until unless he takes a new engine. And I think definitely, I think for me it's going to be Brazil, and definitely other they happen. I think each race, according to me, this season has been better than the previous one, and we've like I've been saying it again and again, we as Formula One fans have been in for a treat, and I think we should just really appreciate the battle that we are having at hands between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. And irrespective of whoever wins, I think we should all respect both the drivers and the champions that we're witnessing. We're just witnessing history. I think I think not. Not. I don't think so. Anyone would be witnessing history being made. Right. I think either of them, whoever wins, history will be created, and we'll be definitely gonna have a lot of fun in the last few races. So yeah, I
I
think
think also one more apart from this championship battles, all the feel good moments, we had like Esteban's win, Daniel's win,
yes,
Fernando's podium, Seb's podium, George's podium. So again, that been absolutely one thing, as a fan, which I wish, but it's very unlikely to happen, is Kimi, Seb, and Fernando podium. But highly unlikely, highly unlikely. It's like parallel universe thing,
That
but I
happened
hope.
in 2013 Australia.
Exactly, that's what I'm going to say. He because it can only happen this season now since Kimi has his two
Yeah,
races left.
yeah.
But I genuinely hope it's too much to ask for. But what's a
never say
human that
never.
does?
This is
Yeah,
Formula
what's
One.
a
Maybe,
human that doesn't ask for good things? So
maybe put a virtual wall in Jeddah where everybody goes into the wall,
exactly
and
for
then
all
basically,
for everyone apart from these
yeah, they
three.
take avoiding action and they eventually end up being kicked off the finish or something.
Good idea.
It can be possible. Why not? I think we've witnessed a season where we didn't expect Sebastian to get a podium. We didn't expect Ricciardo to get a podium. Or even George Russell get a podium. Right? George Russell, we were just waiting for him to score a point, and the very next race we saw
Exactly.
him be on the podium. Right? We didn't expect anything of that. I think.
Exactly.
But
So
I think also that was justice for him based on the
bad luck.
misfortune he had in
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bahrain last
Imola.
year
Bahrain.
Yeah.
with Mercedes
Yeah.
and their stupid wrong sets of tires that they put on, and then plus the puncture, absolutely wrecked
Yes.
a short victory for him. So
True. Yeah. Poetic justice.
yeah,
Yes. 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 So yeah, I think we'll wrap it here. And before we wrap it, I think we'd just like to know who do you think will win? Sorry, before this, I think I think Kimi Räikkönen in the last few races. I think Ankush Ahuja has already written uh, a blog for his retirement. I think he's dedicated a article to Kimi Räikkönen, and he shared his thoughts for that. So everyone, please do watch out for that. And yeah, Kimi, Ankush, if you could just share your thoughts. I think you're the biggest Kimi Räikkönen fan. I think definitely just share your thoughts about Kimi Räikkönen. He's the one. I
well,
think we're gonna miss him. I think his radio messages and in general, like I think his personality. I think
yeah,
he's someone very unique, and he's someone very cool, or someone who doesn't care a shit about anything that's happening near him. Like he's just in his zone, and I think that's very very rare to see
hmm.
such a personality in such a competitive sport as F1, right? I
Hmm.
think. Uh,
Also very PR influence sport. Well, let's be honest, because
yes,
everything is made to look okay. That you try to be as diplomatic as you can be in front of the media, and
yes,
basically, like if you remember, um, even with Seb,
yes,
at,
yes, yes.
at Ferrari, there was a time when they were not too comfortable with some of
Yeah.
the things that he was doing and all. So yeah, I mean, it's like a end of an era, a breed of drivers. Like even I mean, if you talk about Hakkinen or Schumacher, they were also pretty outspoken in that way. And Raikkonen, for that matter, has been one of the most silent Finns I've come across. Even Bottas is not as silent, but off late now, he's been a bit more talkative, at least in front of the media.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, considering that like that's what I wrote in my blog. Whenever I used to come home, the first thing was like, if in case a race was on, or if I switched on the TV, where is that RAI, the RAI, where is he?
Yes.
So where was that classification? And I mean, yeah, next year for sure, my eyes would be searching for those three letters. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be. I really don't know what kind of
And on
emotions.
behalf of Kimi, I would like to say, Ankush, you are my best fan, and I would like to probably dedicate this award to you, and
Oh, I mean,
probably.
there are fans more passionate than me. In fact, Ice Army China, they actually have a display exhibition going on with at one of the Alfa Romeo dealerships. If you actually go
Oh,
on
is
their
that?
Instagram, oh yeah, yeah. If you
Wow.
go on their Instagram page, you'll be amazed by the kind of collection they put up there. It's like a Kimi Raikkonen makeshift museum right now in China. So yeah, I mean, even like Saima Azam, who is one of the girl who runs Kimi Raikkonen Space. I mean, I have not seen a fan as passionate as or even one of my very close friends, Jane Bleach, who I used to meet at the races. So I mean, we are a very close knit clan because uh, people find it very hard to identify with a character like Kimi
Yeah.
because of all his and his general demeanor and behavior. He comes across as a very cold guy in that
Yeah.
way. But I mean, I've been blessed to see him from, I mean, up close quarters. You know, interacting with his friends or his PR or his trainer, and he's such a different guy. So I mean, I've seen two sides of the same coin. So for me, the last two races is, I mean, I still garner hopes of being at Abu Dhabi if I can. It all depends if Abu Dhabi does allow Covaxin to come in, and if that happens, then yes, I really don't know what kind of emotions I'll be going through there. But yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to get to terms with the fact that this time he's going for good. I knew in 2009 that he was on the way out, but and that time I actually thought that that was it. I really thought that he would never come back again. So for him to come back in 2012 was a big surprise, and then to race for another 9 years, 10 years actually now, up until the end of 2021. Well, that was, I mean, I would have never thought in the wildest of my dreams that he would be so racing for so long. So I'm really thankful that I've been able to see him for 10 years now in the second stint in Formula One. And of course, I mean, as a fan also, you do understand that these guys are athletes, and no matter, and you can't really go on up
Yeah.
until like eventually there will be a day when Seb will call it quits and Alonso will say yes, Hamilton will walk away, and you will have a new era of drivers coming through the lower ranks. But if I were to say, guys like Seb and Kimi and Fernando and Lewis, they belong to a clan, that were born racers. They have this is what they have done, and they actually became racers. I mean, of course, they were God gifted, but they also became racers on the track. Something that the other guys I don't really can identify with. More like they're like sim racing legends. Even guys like Verstappen and all these guys over the weekends. So I mean, they do so much of track work, but these guys, they are like they have a life outside of racing, and all they do is like even with Kimi, no simulator, minimal simulator work, no track walks. Just go out and explore a track. I mean, that's how you would do that. I mean, if you were to go to a karting track, you're not going to go into a simulator or anything. Just like the good old karting days, you go out on a new track, take your cart out, see where the limits of the track are, what the racing lines are, and then and do your best. So I think that kind of talent and ability is rare to find, and yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm a bit sad also that there is no. I mean, you've got Botas, but there was a time when you had a good amount of Finnish representation in the sport, and then suddenly after Botas, there is nobody that I can think of that might take his place or be at the same level as Kimi was in his prime. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Too many emotions, too many things to talk about. I mean, I probably could do a video by myself and just keep on talking away, but yeah, somewhere it has to
I
stop.
hope Kimi gives you his shoulder to cry on in Abu Dhabi.
He has his family coming in, so
Yeah.
that's an added impetus to be there. So
He'll
thanks to
probably say, Ankush, come on, we'll go to my house and he'll probably have a drink and drive a Ferrari which have gloves and steering wheel.
oh,
So
he's got a Lamborghini Urus. So that
that
was
has
the car that Mintu bought the day Kimi announced that he was leaving Ferrari. So that was quite like a cryptic post.
Uh, just a note that I lost the audio here onwards till the end of the podcast was just more 10 minutes to go, and we faced some technical issues and lost the audio. And we summed it up by just asking everyone whether who do they think would win the championship, the Drivers' Championship, and it was 3-1 in the favor of Lewis Hamilton. It was Siddharth who suggested that uh, Max Verstappen shall win the championship, whereas me, Anthony, and Ankush suggested that Lewis Hamilton can win the championship from here onwards, given the advantage that he has of the new engine. And yeah, it was great. It was great catching up with all of them, like-minded F1 enthusiasts, Ankush, Siddharth, and Anthony. It was quite a long chat as well. We enjoyed it a lot, and it was good fun. And it's the first podcast that we've done on our channel as well. So quite an interesting one. And yeah, I just said thank you and times as well. During the time that we've lost. But yeah, just like to thank each and every one who are watching this video for your love and support till here, and for watching this video as well. And a massive thank you to Ankush Ahuja, to Siddharth, and to Anthony as well for being a part of the first podcast of the Racing Squad. Really appreciate it, and look forward to many more podcasts in the future. And for anyone who's new here, I'm your host Nayan Narwani, and hope to see you all around for the next race screenings as well. That's gonna happen around Mumbai and India as well. And yeah, enjoy the rest next few races of the championship, and whoever wins the championship, Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, I think we all shall respect both the drivers. I think both deserve to win the championship and have given us a really exciting battle to witness, and which is witnessing history being made. So yeah, a massive thank you to everyone who've watched till here, to all the fans, to all the viewers for your love and support, and enjoy the rest of the races and the season so far. Thank you so much, everyone. And if you're new here, please do like, share, and subscribe as well. That would really mean a lot. That would help the channel grow, and your support will definitely mean a lot as well. So thanks, done, everyone.